also a registered Maine guide. I'm licensed in tidewater fishing, freshwater fishing, and outdoor recreation. I also have a background in commercial fishing, lobstering, giant tuna, groundfish. I feel that I have a pretty strong understanding of the relationship between the cycle of life, where things start and where they end up and where they come back to. And I was at the last meeting, and I didn't stand up because, in all honesty, I didn't want to start crying because I was upset. I could come up here and say, as a guide, that people come from far and wide. If you've ever been down to Parsons Beach, you'll see cars from every state in New England to fish that river. It's such a small stretch of river above the head of tide, where I can tell you that I would rather catch and eat salmon and sea-run trout and smallmouth bass or yellow perch or other non-native species any day of the week. I think that, by the way, I'm in support of removal of all three dams. I don't know how many of you, or even members of the board, have had the opportunity to go down to Kesselin Dam at the end of May. There was even question of, at the last meeting, whether or not alewives even existed in the river, or river herring, or American shad, or eels. Well, there are, and they can't get past the Kesselin Dam. And to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's a financial no-brainer when you look at things, and the risk involved in trying to put in two different types of fish ladders that may or may not work. It just doesn't make sense to me. My son and I sat there and watched schools of alewives swirl in circles and shad darting all about. Nowhere to go, nowhere to go further to swamp. And my son caught his first alewife, and he decided to let it go, so they had a chance. And I really wish that you guys would consider the same and set them else free. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Braddock, and I have a house on the mountain below the Kesselin. And I also own a multi-family property that has 7 units above the Kesselin, overlooking the Kesselin. So I read that 8th grade years. I would love to see those dams come down. I mean, from an economic standpoint, I don't want my rates to go up anymore, to relicense, repair. They're not efficient enough, they're antiquated, I think they need to come down. An environmental standpoint, I want to see those fish be able to run free. I want to be able to kayak above and below, which I do now. I'd love to see those eagles and the herons and the cormorants be able to keep going up and have fish galore to eat. Also, from a recreational standpoint, again, be able to kayak back and forth above and below. But I just wanted to say I wholeheartedly support the removal. Thank you.
I'm John Garrett. I'm a ratepayer live on Kennebunk River.
Can't hear you.
Sorry? I'm John Garrett. I'm a ratepayer, live on the Kennebunk River right here in town. I grew up in Michigan back in the 60s, and alewives were a dirty word out there because they took over the Great Lakes, washed up on the beach. It smelled all high heaven. Thank goodness we brought in salmon to eat them. I couldn't understand why we wanted to lives there. But I've been a fisherman all my life. I love being on the water. I love being outdoors. At the same time, I love the views and the opportunities for kayaking and working and living along these slope out moving body of water that has to depth to it. Neighbors swim in the water all the time. When the water was drawn down, they had nice practice sitting in. So I think we really need to be looking for middle ground that makes the majority of people happy. On one hand, from an environmental standpoint, many of the things that are being talked about with the improved ecology of the river can be accomplished by the fish ladders, getting the native species back into the water. Yes, the water quality is not ideal, but at the same time, it is an improvement by getting fish into that area. On the economic side, there's a lot of different arguments that can be made. I'm concerned about property values going down. I live not too far away from the house that was marked down significantly here in the last few weeks. If all the houses along the river have property values going down, there's going to be, a lowering of the tax base in the area, increased taxes for everyone.
Please use the mic.
I'm sorry, yes. I'm saying that if the property values go down with all the houses along the river, there could be a tax hit for everyone that lives in the town, in the community, because the tax rate base will be dropped. So at the same time, my taxes will go down too. So there's a lot of issues at play here. Hopefully we can find a middle ground whereby I would support keeping the dams, putting in the fish ladders, and looking at the incremental costs that you're already going to be spending a lot of money to take the dams out. How can we take those incremental costs, force them over the 30 or 40 years or a 20-year bond or whatever? And it comes down to a few $100,000 a year. It's a lot, but it's not a big scary number of 10 million or 12 million or 8 million. And I think those were your capital costs and not necessarily your operational costs. If I would call that in the form correctly. So those were some of the points I would like to make. And I did have a question with regards to the water, or the sampling that was done recently.
Yes, sir.
And that is, what are you going to do if it comes back and shows that there's issues there, and what would have to be done along the stretch of the river for the property owners that are looking along that would become an EPA dome?
The layman answer would be to ask for a second opinion. But we'll take that information and that will determine where additional costs will come from regarding the alternatives that are out there. So they'll be taken into consideration with the rest of the considerations that have been taken in the financial plans to see exactly what impact that will have on each of the different alternatives that have been selected.
Do you expect we're going to have another public forum after we have more information here?
I can only guarantee you there will be another public forum, sir. Yes, sir.
Did I just hear you say there's going to be another public forum?
No, Landon, you're hearing things.
My name is Landis Hudson. I'm the Executive Director of Maine Rivers, and I want to offer a sincere thank you to the trustees and to Todd for your hard work, taking the time and energy to pull together a lot of the questions and the answers that we've found today. I found it very interesting to read, and I'm glad to know that along with the great number of 7th graders, we've been reviewing their work, so thank you. Of course, my organization, Maine Rivers, our mission is to protect, restore, and enhance the ecological health of Maine's river systems. We strongly support the fourth alternative. The economics seem very clear, and in terms of the ecology behind this, the science is also very clear. I'm also here to let you know that there are many organizations and many communities throughout the state of Maine that have been involved in restoration projects. So, of course, my organization, Maine Rivers, there's also the Coastal Conservation Association, the Nature Conservancy, the Atlantic Salmon Federation, the Natural Resources Council of Maine. Many organizations have gotten involved in dam removals because it is how we can bring resilience back to our natural systems for the fish, for the web of life that they support. I think as we look for the future, we obviously live in a difficult time. It's hard not to be upset anytime you turn on the news now. There are a lot of very difficult things going on in the world. I think we all need to take the time to think about the world that we want to live in for our children. People have mentioned the series that was published in the Portland Press Herald recently, pointing out how the Gulf of Maine is really on the verge of a crisis. We can't change all things, but it's really exciting to hear the opportunities that this community has to repair a river that's had generations of degradation, but can become more resilient. The kind of fisheries that we've been talking about this evening, shad, alewives, eels, they are resilient. They can come back. We have many experiences from different communities to show that these fisheries do rebound, and with them come other types of life and birds that would be fabulous to see downtown. One note, I'm sure as people continue conversations in the future, the idea of contamination will come back. It's something that kind of resonates with people, and it's easy to focus on the unknowns and the questions. I noticed in the report there was a cost of $125,000 estimated for dealing with contamination. I would say, hold that until you know more. Don't be worried until you have the facts, and obviously looking for the facts and sharing them is what I understand to be a strong interest in these people. And I'm really thankful that you're willing to look for information and share it with the community. And I'm pleased that the ecology and the economics show a way that can be a model for other communities, and I hope will be something that you can be proud of for your children and for your grandchildren. Thank you.
Steve Hines, I'm a conservation chair for Sebago chapter of Trout Unlimited. We're the chapter that's local to this area. We have 600 members in southwestern Maine. 55 of our members do live in the Malsom River watershed. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of Alternative 4. First thing I'd like to do is just address some of the remarks that I've heard made tonight, and then move on to some of the things that I had thought of before I came. My organization has been mentioned. There have been instances where what has been done instead of fish ladders is our natural rock ramp type structures have been used to replace dams and keep impoundments. I suspect that the reason why this is not an alternative that is brought up in the White-Pierce report is because this tends to be a very expensive alternative. So I think that's why we're not considering that as alternative 5 or 3A or something, but that's why that's there. And, you know, the instances I've seen, it has been farther upstate, and it has been places where there have been a lot more butters. But I don't think that's appropriate here. Another reason is because every one of the ponds that a dam creates acts as a giant heat sink. And it does make warmer water. The Wells Reserve folks have done a study on that, and they've shown how the water temperatures between the, as you go downstream through the different impoundments, they get warmer. So it's really, it's an inferior solution as far as the environment goes. So please, I hope no one heard that Trout Unlimited supports, keeping the dams or building rock ramps here. We don't see that as a good solution for the Malsom River. The other thing that was mentioned was the history. And you've got to respect the history. God, we live in such a gorgeous state where the history's all around us. Most places in the country it's buried. It was raised, decades and even centuries ago and replaced by stuff that's newer and in so many ways so much uglier. It's beautiful to live in this state just from everything like the room we're sitting in tonight. It's really hard to adequately appreciate that. But What I have found, our organization has been involved with 3 dam removals in the last 3 years. We've had no trouble from any historical society about those removals. From time to time, they'll want to keep a structure that's near a dam, but dams are such an environmental problem that they don't want to be associated with it. And in no case did any historical society say, oh, please, keep our dam. So I just kind of like to throw that out. What I really came here to say tonight is just that so much of this is a matter of perspective. And you've got to respect the others and how they feel about things, and I certainly do. But we know things will change when the dams are removed. There's going to be some places where there still will be water, there's still going to be pools of water, and the people who live near those, I think in some cases, will be kind of wondering what was all the fuss about, because it's going to look much the same. Other areas, though, there will be less water. There are going to be areas that will be revegetated. But from what I've seen of the projects I've been involved with, that's beautiful too. I think the abutters really don't want to see rapids. They don't want to see rocks. They don't want to see that, the rolling river kind of a thing. It's not what they're used to. But that really is the life of the river. It's the music of the water, and the fish dance to it, and all of the organisms that depend on the fish dance to that music. I was up hiking in the woods up by Sugarloaf Mountain about 3 weeks ago, and that music pervades the woods. It's part of the fertility of our state. It's part of what makes it so beautiful. And that music has been taken away from the lower Mountain for over 3 centuries. So I guess in closing, we have an opportunity to restore the music here for the fish and for all the other species. So please, I hope you make a good decision. I think there are a lot of ways to look at this, but please remember the fish. Thanks.
My name is Stuart Bowen. I'm a ratepayer and a butter on the Kesslin impoundment. I think a lot of the conversation tonight has been off target. This is not about fishes and river views, as much as I would like to support those things. My training all my professional training is as an environmental engineer before you think I'm on target. I am very sympathetic. But this is about what's best for the ratepayers. And it cannot be that we are going to spend millions of dollars to promote somebody else's project. All right, I'm an engineer by trade, originally anyway, and I have an engineering question. As the river comes down, right behind my house, if the Kessler Dam is removed, right there there'll be about a 45-degree turn in the river. Head straight into the dam. I was here 10 years ago. We had those 2 major floods, and there's an amazing amount of water potential coming down there. And I'm concerned for my backyard, and I've not spoken to my neighbors, so I don't speak for them, but there are 6 buildings, 6 properties, from one on my left down to number 1, right by the bridge, the brick building. Should the water be lower, there's going to be a tremendous amount of force put onto my backyard. And I'm concerned also for the house number 1, because if the water level were down, I'm concerned about the sediment, what is holding the house up. And it's certainly possible that without the water in the ground, that the structure would be in difficulty. So I have those 2 questions. Fireless have house issues in terms of where's the water, how's that curve going to be dealt with? And the other one, I'm concerned for the foundation of the house.
Well, Todd's handed me the microphone again, so I guess it's my lucky day. Yeah, I think that's a good, legitimate question. I think probably a number of people in the room have heard the issues that happened with Fort Halifax Dam. Was that? Further upstate, up the Waterville area, Winslow area, where our dam was removed a few years back, and I'm not sure that all the ramifications of this sort were fully anticipated. Again, I didn't have any personal involvement with that, but I think for a lot of people who are in the business of dam removal, it kind of heightened the awareness of the potential for erosion and what happens to maybe some of the sediments that may have been deposited that may be saturated, and what happens with time with the new greater velocities that we see. When I had the microphone earlier, I think I made a reference to an assessment of the infrastructure within the impoundment. So if it looks like the KLPD trustees, if and when they get around to a decision, decide for option number 4, or any of the options that involve dam removal, one of the next jobs on the list would be to do a more detailed assessment of the impoundment to make sure that those sort of eventualities are understood perhaps a little bit better, and if there are measures that need to be taken in order to make sure that there isn't impact to private property or municipal infrastructure such as storm drains, bridges, things like bridge scour, things like that. All of those need to be looked at in more detail at such time as that option might be undertaken.
I know you're aware of these issues. My concern is that by the time you go property to property, depending on what you find, there might be some relatively large numbers involved. It might change a little bit of the dynamic of what looks inexpensive.
Okay, thank you for that input. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Donna Teague, and I live on the Mousom River. I probably have one of the most beautiful views of the river, thanks to a huge project that was in part funded by federal and state money, and a big second mortgage on our part to stop the erosion on the bluff and save our house in 2011. So I have a lot at stake in this decision, and I'm going to be right up front about that. The committee's been working on this since 2011. Many abutters found out about this much later than 2011. I was totally shocked in March of 2013 when I came to that meeting and found out that I thought this was going to be about enhancing the Mousom. And then I found out it was about dam removal. Now I know you folks use the words river restoration. I find it hard to understand how a river is restored when the water goes away. And I'd love to be enlightened, but I'm still not, and I know you're rolling your eyes. There are inconsistencies in this report when it comes to fish. If you look at page 5.4, if I'm reading this correctly, about the fisheries, so isn't this saying that, if we help the fish, this is what's going to happen with them? It says the alewife is not expected to provide significant immediate benefit. The shad will get benefit, black herring will get benefit, American eel should provide meaningful benefit, smelt, 3 sites, removal of the dam at 3 sites is not expected to provide significant benefit. So I will admit, I'm confused about all of that. I'm all for fish, and I am all for the ecology. But I don't quite get it. I don't think there's any better guarantees with taking all the dams out than there are with seeking other alternatives. One thing that I don't think enough work has been done on is the property value issue. I'm a ratepayer, I am a taxpayer. I have 700 feet of riverfront. I would really like to know how my property is going to be affected. And I want to know before it happens. Because after it happens, there's not one darn thing I can do about it. Now, I'm a little shocked tonight to find out that I think on the timetable it said something about, you're going to take comments this month, and then by March 2016, you want to have a decision. How are we going to get some real science? I don't want propaganda. I want real science. How is this really going to look to the abutters? I think this report is great. I know you guys have all worked hard, and I know it's a beginning, but what is, okay, it's subjective. As far as we can tell, what are the property values going to be? What are the impacts going to be? Tonight I heard again, we don't really know if we keep the Kesslon, how far up the river, what that's going to look like. Well, there's a lot of if we don't know. If you make a decision by March of 2016 and then you start to investigate that stuff, it's too late. So I really hope that a lot of these issues that hopefully the public is going to bring forth will be allowed to be investigated and presented before a decision is made. We can't change this once we do it. Also, if we have our property values go down, taxes are going to go down, how is the town of Kennebunk going to make that up? I just think there's still a lot that's unanswered, and I appreciate all the hard work. I thank God I'm not one of you guys. I would not want to be responsible for this decision. But I just don't think this is clear enough yet, precise enough yet, and really takes into account the taxpayers, the ratepayers, and the river abutters. We're going to have the biggest cost. And I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but this feels a little bit like a collective scene phone call to me.
Thank you for your comments. It would be helpful to us, I think, if you could prioritize the specific questions that you think we should address in the next draft of the report. And I'm sure we will look at those closely and try and evaluate how much it will cost to do it and how impactful it would be on the decision and what would be the impact on you and others in the community. Thank you.
I will put it in writing. Thank you.
Please.
Do you have an obligation to provide the fish passage upstream? Is that part of the federal mandate of this role?
Can't hear you.
Do you have an obligation to provide a fish passage? Do you have an obligation to provide fish passage as part of this whole program?
More than likely we would.
You don't know that? You don't know for certain that. So you have financial obligations to the ratepayers. So if you keep the 3 dams and stop producing electricity, you don't have to pay the federal relicensing. Is that correct? If we
I'm sorry, could you
If you
repeat
keep the dams and don't have electricity produced, you don't have to pay the federal government the license.
But more than likely we'd be required to remove those dams or install fish passage, although even though we've already stopped generating. It's part of the license surrender process that FERC goes through. They will impose requirements on the district.
To remove the dams.
More than likely.
But you didn't answer the question of you were obligated to provide fish passage.
That is an unknown. It will depend on the federal agencies involved or the state agencies involved, depending on the process that's gone through.
So most of the speakers here tonight are environmental activists, I would say. They're in favor of ocean fish as opposed to freshwater fish, which will be destroyed, I would assume, mostly. Because I live on the river and biased, of course. So I just wonder why 2 species, maybe 3 species of fish that could travel another mile or 2 inland is more important than the thousands of species which might be destroyed by the removal of dams that have been there for almost 300 years.
Could you help us by identifying yourself?
My name is Christopher McLean, I live on the Mouse River on Partridge Lane. It just doesn't seem right to me that all this discussion is about the fish, and there's no mandate whatsoever to protect the fish. Because the wrong word just down. So like half the comments tonight are related to this discussion. Thank you.
It's a fair point. I think the important thing to know is that nothing is mandated until it is mandated. But all the study work that's been done indicates that these assumptions about fish ladders will be required through the
Big assumptions.
It's big.
Big assumptions made up from environmentalists that come before you.
Actually, from research.
From the history.
Historical archives of what they require.
We have researched what FERC requires in their dam license renewals, and almost, Pat, is it safe to say a vast majority of those renewals require fish passage or some sort of fish restoration? So that's good. Yeah, you can pass that down.
And the few fish species mentioned tonight, no more than 4, they're endangered somehow?
Let me see if I can try to answer some of that question. We looked at all of the licensing that have been done recently in the New England area, and our focus just on New England, and in fact, all of those did require fish passage. I also met with the former general manager of KLPD, and I myself met with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, National Marine Resources, Maine Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, and Department of Marine Resources agencies. And we talked specifically about what would be the likely requirements. And even though none of the agencies could absolutely say, for legal reasons, they could not say, we will require fish passage, because they actually, in order to fulfill their mandate, they have to do certain levels of studies. But in fact, they said, odds are, we will be requiring fish passage. All the information that they have at that point in time said fish passage was likely to be required, which is why we kept saying that in the report, that it's likely to be required.
For the record, I'm not opposed to fish passages, but if you have no mandate from a lawyer or federal government or the state that says you have to do it, aren't you really taking a lot of things into consideration that you know nothing about at this point?
The mandate would come in through a new license or a license exemption. The mandate would come not with the current license, but if a new license was sought, or a license exemption was sought, or even if a license surrender, let's talk about the first two. At that point in time, the agencies would have the right to work with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and say fish passage will be required. U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Department of Marine Resources have the authority to mandate fish passage.
You can't have the answer before you make your decision.
No, we tried.
That's the federal government, folks.
Barry, just in the interest of the timer, are you speaking for yourself or on behalf of the town? I don't want to cut you off too soon.
We got the 3 minutes.
Beautiful.
My name is Barry Tibbetts. I do not live in town. I am not a ratepayer, but I am a town manager. So I just got a couple of questions that I'd like the board to explore. The few folks that I've talked to that remember the river or have done some research have indicated to me that Kessler Dam was once known as Great Falls, and if you go to Twine Mill, it was known as Little Falls. And from what I've heard from a couple different people is that Kessler Dam, that falls was over 5 feet, and it was over 3 or 4 feet up at Little Falls. And so I just want to know about, there's been a lot of talk about fish migration and how that works through the river. I just want to know what fish are going to be able to go up a 5 or 6 foot waterfall, and what fish are going to be able to go up a 3 foot waterfall. Just, if we're talking about restoring the river and we're talking about the fish going up, then we should know what kind of fish are going to be able to go up and what that rate is. So right there's to look at that, that would be great. Another thing I'd like the board to take a look at is, I've been told that KLPD is not eligible for NOAA grants. but the town would be eligible for NOAA grants for fishways. And that the grants that the town could obtain were up to 50% of whatever that total project cost is. Now, I'm not saying the town wants to be involved at that level, but I think from a funding perspective, when you're looking at the cost is $6 million to do fishways, and you get 50% of that money through a grant, you have to raise $3 million, and it's going to cost you $2.3 million to take the dams out, and maybe we ought to think about what that cost difference is there. Really, $700,000 or $800,000, and what's the cost benefit loss of that? I'm not saying that's a solution, but I think for the sake of running numbers, we ought to see what that is. Another option to possibly consider in lowering the cost on the dam removals or keeping the dams is maybe not taking the dams completely out, but lowering the dams down. In other words, if they're currently 15 feet, what if you were to take them down 5 feet? That lowers the cost of the fishway. It does lower the banks of the river, but perhaps then the land is from the existing reduction of the river back to where the original line was, some kind of walking trail gets put in its place. And then instead of taking the dams out, if you took that $2.2 million and set it aside and let it bear an interest-bearing account, will probably generate $125,000 to $140,000 a year. Use that money to stock the rivers so that you can then have some kind of fish walkway where you can walk from one area to another to do fishing and still keep your kayaking and all your river activities. I realize that's a lot more work, but it's just another alternative that you might want to consider in your analysis. Thank you.
And it was under 3 minutes. Do we have any other people who would like to speak?
Are we allowed to ask the next question?
We apparently have.
Well, one more point. Can the extension on the you're asking for comments back by the end of this month?
Yes.
Would you be willing to extend that so maybe your first meeting in January? The reason is because you have Thanksgiving coming up, Christmas coming up. This will probably be only replayed maybe once or twice before then. This would give people more time to see it and think about the kind of questions or items that they may want to share comments with you on. Just an option.
We've been at it for a couple of months, so I think the board would have to make a decision. Thank you.
You can ask a question, you can speak.
Let's just see if there's sure.
Barry raised a good point about grants for fish passage. I wonder, I understand that there are grants available for dam removal as well. And has that been looked into, or when you look into fish passage, look into the opportunities for grants for dam removal, to use the cost of that as well?
Yes, thank you.
We are aware that there are grants potentially, again, you don't have until you have them, but potentially available for both pathways that were raised, discussed. We did not include them in any of our assumptions, so it's all apples to apples.
I'll speak loudly so I don't have to hobble over there and take too much time. When we were doing the dams back in the 80s, one of the scenarios that I dreamed up was to use Rogers Pond as a collecting pond so that they could be taken from there upstream to Mousom Lake. That has not been addressed in this report. Granted, we wouldn't truck them that far probably, but there are other hydroelectric places in the country that use that scenario to avoid having to build multi-million-dollar fish ladders.
This is just a question of clarification, and I might have missed it, but I think, Todd, you said that you were going to explain, you know, when you have the chart of all the costs. So you had the costs, but then there was that other column that reduces it. Did you explain what that's all about?
I welcome people who have further comments or questions on that to contact me at the office because
Oh, okay. All right, I'll do that.
it gets into quite a long conversation.
Okay.
Sharon Scott, a resident of Kennebunk and a ratepayer. I just want to echo Barry's request and would ask the board and Tom to seriously give very, very serious consideration to accepting comments until the first of the year rather than the 30th of November. I realize you've been at this a long time, but there's Thanksgiving, there's holidays. This is the first opportunity that most people have had to see all of these alternatives. I know you encouraged them to read the report prior to this meeting. Not everybody did that. This meeting may encourage them to give more thought to it and have better ideas. I don't think you're going to lose that much time in your planning. Your idea of having a decision by March of 16 still gives you a year before you have to do your final filing. So a month or two delay in that to April of 16 or May of 16 would not necessarily mess up your plans. And I would hope that you would give due consideration to extending that comment time period.
Thank you, Sharon. I don't think it would be a problem. I'll ask the board that we will at least extend it until the December 9th meeting, so at least the board can then weigh in on. We don't have a full board here tonight. The board's not prepared to vote on that item. I don't foresee it being a major problem. But we will provide updates on our website and let you know when that public comment period closes. And just keep in mind, anybody that added their email address to that list will get added to the hydro distribution list and you'll get information in that manner.
So this is an official meeting of the board. I've taken a little bit of a poll. It is not exactly on the agenda, but I think we can vote on this. So if someone would like to make a motion to extend this.
I'll make a motion to extend the comment period to our 19th.
And we have a second. Any discussion about it here? All those in favor? So we have at least a temporary extension. So we can discuss
when we could.
December 9th is our next regular meeting. Yeah, and we could extend it further.
My name is Patricia Hughes. I'm a resident of Kennebunk, taxpayer and a ratepayer. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about the fact that the river is polluted. I don't find it that way, and I've had it tested, neighbors have had it tested, but when you remove these dams, is the sludge that has built up over the centuries, including the colored water that comes from Sanford and the dyes, is that not built up behind the dams, and will it not be released, and therefore will, I assume, will be the DEP not want to come in and test that? And I saw that you allowed a very modest budget to remove that or to test it, but I can't imagine that you could do that behind 3 dams for $125,000. It just doesn't seem reasonable. And in terms of cost, it seems like it's something that hasn't been tested. We don't know what's behind those dams. If I understand this correctly, I couldn't find anything that reports it where anything's been drilled or tested. And it seems like you would want to find out what's behind those dams before you remove them and let all that potential pollution down, killing these fish that you're so diligently looking at live in the river. And people that swim and kayak in the river also aren't real happy about the idea of it being further polluted than what it is now.
We expect the results of that sediment sampling to be forthcoming within the next week or so. There was sampling done, that's why the impoundments were drained on November 5th to do sampling because the district and ratepayers felt that indicative sampling behind Kessler Dam would give us an idea of what is upstream since the Twine Mill and Dane Perkins were breached through the early 80s, and Kesselin was last breached in 1954 when it was reconstructed. So those sediments on both sides of the river, at least to give us an indicative sampling as to what we might find in the remainder of the river should be here within the next couple of weeks. They have been sent off to the lab to be sampled.
So if they're coming back in the next couple of weeks,
Yep.
if today is the 15th?
Today's the 16th.
16th?
Yep.
That would be perhaps after the former November 30th date, so that none of us would have that information, nor would you, before you're asking for a close of comments. I think you're cutting it really close. And also then, just out of show of hands, could you folks, I know you worked extremely hard on this, and I value the time, the effort, and the money that's been put into this, but I wonder how many of you paddled or walked along the Mousom when there was no Mousom on the 5th? Did any of you see what it looked like? It's not a river anymore. It is a brook. It's not a river. It's not really kayakable. I don't know who kayaked it, but I climbed down the bank. I did it on the 5th too.
Yeah, you can do it.
You could do it if you work really, really hard on it. It's not for a recreational river, and you're talking about making this a recreational area. Who's going to provide the budget to clean up the river and to make this a recreational area and to advertise it or whatever? Isn't that down the town of Kennebunk for them to do that? I assume you're not going to do that.
So thank you for the comments. No, I appreciate it. I don't think we're going to get into a debate with everyone in the room here about the subject, but they are good comments, and we are evaluating the potential for contamination of the mud. And I would like to correct one thing that you said, that we are not at this point advocating anything. We are seeking public comment, and yours I appreciate. And we are trying to evaluate the options, look at the costs, understand the ecological impacts, the recreational impacts, the economic impacts, and so on. So we're really on that path, and that's why we're here.
I think we all agree with you and we understand that, but we have to all say how we see it from our point of view. And
that's right.
We're really looking at different aspects.
Yeah, I caution you not to attribute all of the comments of people in this room to this board. This is the reason that we have these hearings, is to hear from people with different views and then to try and find a good pathway. So, and I understand your concern about it. So we're listening, and thank you. Are there other comments or questions?
Jay?
Yes.
Monica Graven, I'm a
We just need you on the microphone.
My name is Monica Graven, I'm a Kennebunk resident and ratepayer. My understanding is that when that drawdown was done, there was no water coming from above. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So I mean, that's why it was so low. There was no water flowing. You can't see what the level would be if there's no water coming from above, because they're trying to drain the river. And the other thing is, you know, yes, in the report it says 1.9 feet. And that was when the river was drawn down. I mean, in the spring, there's going to be a lot more water in that river. It's a moving system, that's all. Thank you.
If I may, I'll just clarify, the river was never stopped in its entirety. It was drawn down in the two upper impoundments prior to bringing down the Kesselin impoundment. The day that we did it, the week prior there was rain, and they were experiencing about 100 cubic feet per second at the Mousom River gauge, which for November is a fair amount of flow. So it was impossible for us to completely stop the water, but we also will have drone video that was taken when that was drawn down, just to give people an idea of what the river looked like during our drawn down scenario. Obviously, anytime there's an impoundment in the way, you're never going to get a true reflection of what that river will look like without that impoundment, but it'll give people an idea of what the river looked like and what we were experiencing at that time. So we could not completely stop water, but during the period we had to make concessions to try to reduce the amount of inflow that was coming into the Kesselin impoundment, because not only is it coming from upstream, but also from tributaries that feed the lower section of the river. Yes. The drone flyover video will be posted on the Hydro page of our website once the revisions are made and everything is seamlessly, musically wonderful, I guess is how we put it. But we don't want just a video, we've got to have some background music.
I live high along the river, and I can see for a long way. When they drew the water down, there were spots of water where you could kayak or you could use a canoe for a short period, for a short distance. But when this water is down, except for the flooding in the spring, you won't be able to use the water for kayaking or canoeing. Nobody here has mentioned that.
So it's been a lively discussion, and it looks like we have one more comment. This will be the last.
Hi there, my name is Jennifer Humphrey. I live over on Fletcher Street above the Kesslin Dam, directly across from the high school pretty much. And the conversation tonight has been very interesting and has opened my mind about the different options, certainly. But I wanted to put my 2 cents in about how the river is used by the abutters in the area. Firstly, from a view perspective, if you are concerned about the finances or the ecology, the view may seem small potatoes to you. But when there's potential for lessening of property values, that does have a tax implication. And I would just like to point out that the money that we're talking with the 4 different options has not really addressed what tax implications will come through the reduction of property values. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that many people are discussing how much the river will be improved by its freely flowing. Of course, when you say something's freely flowing, it sounds pretty good. But from our perspective as abutters on the river, it's a little scary to think about looking out your back window at a muddy ditch. A muddy ditch does not have fish that swim in it, and that is when you get some stink. I'll tell you from personal perspective that we do swim in the river, and when you come out of that river, you feel like you've just taken a luxurious shower. It's clean, it's lovely. I tell my children not to drink it, but to swim in it is a beautiful experience. And so I just wish that you would consider those things as you make your decision. Thank you.
Just a quick comment, as was mentioned by Mr. Graven earlier, most studies around the country and in Maine have shown that property values go up, not down, once rivers are restored. Thank you.
I want to see a study, all footloose. And more than just small dams.
We did schedule to be here until 9:30, and I think we have achieved the goal of giving everyone at least a chance to talk, and some a second. If you have something that you'd like to say,
I'd just like to read one quote.
I'm willing to go with one more quote, and then we'll close it up.
I'm sorry, my name is Andrea, but I live a few miles away in Biddeford, and the question has repeatedly come up as to what the river would look like, particularly around the Kesselman Fountain. The question has come up as to what the river would look like particularly around the Kesselman Fountain. And I did want to share this one quote that is out of a book that was published in 1875 by the local historian Edward Bourne about what the river actually did look like before the dams were in place at precisely the spot that Kesselman is at the moment. We now turn our attention to the eastern part of the town. I'm sorry. We now turn our attention to the eastern part of the town, and chiefly to the portion of which constitutes the present village of Kennebunk. Perhaps a more beautiful and romantic locality was not to be found on the coast of Maine than was at that time presented by the Mouse River and its vicinage. The fall extended nearly half a mile, being in its full descent about 40 feet, and from the beginning to the end was overhung with magnificent oaks, standing on each side of the river and intertwining their branches, so that the stream glided along under an arch, surpassing in grandeur and beauty any work of man which could be substituted in its place. The stately pines, towering far above all the other trees of the forest, stood along the banks as watchmen to guard against any vandalism which would attempt to intrude upon and violate its sacred magnificence. At their accustomed seasons, the stream was crowded with salmon, while the wilderness adjoining was vocal with the music of innumerable songsters. The whole scenery was entrancing in the highest degree. Romance here might have found indulgence to the full, and well might the sons of the forest have called the place Kennebunk, meaning, as linguists say, the place where he hanged him. That is what the river will look like. Thank you.
Is there a rebuttal?
Yes, that quote is long before Estes Lake was created. That river will never be restored unless Old Falls, New Dam, and all the dams in Seneca up the House of Lake are taken out. You'll never see that river flow freely as it did in the year 1600.
And is that what you're advocating, sir?
No, I'm not advocating.
Thank you all very much. I know that there are strongly held beliefs and well-known facts, and there's questions that we do not yet have the answers to. I think you helped guide us tonight, and I look to the board during our next meeting to begin to identify the additional items that we need to research so that you have the information that you need. Do I have a motion to adjourn?